How dangerous is Delta Plus? The new COVID-19 variant spreads to Singapore. More parts of Changi Airport could be opened up after complaints about long waiting times at immigration. And footballer Harry Birtwistle's application to renounce his Singapore citizenship has been rejected. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Olivia Quay. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. Countries are on alert for it. The World Health Organization is tracking it, and now Singapore has detected its first case of the Delta Plus COVID-19 variant. Well, here's what we know so far. According to the Health Ministry, the case was imported and there's no evidence of it spreading to the community. In terms of transmissibility and severity of illness, Delta Plus is expected to be similar to other Delta subvariants. And for now, it's listed by WHO as a variant of interest, not a variant of concern. Well, let's find out more about Delta Plus from infectious diseases physician Dr. Leong Hoe Nam from the Rophi Clinic. Welcome back to the show, Doc. So can you explain, first of all, why Delta Plus is expected to be similar to other Delta subvariants in transmissibility and severity of illness?
Delta Plus is not really very new. We had it for the last few months. In the first half of this year, it was already there. And of course, it came out when Delta was actually ravaging the whole world. Now, Delta Plus has a slight edge over the Delta strain which we have. It is a bit more transmissible, and the early study suggests it's about 10% more transmissible. And that's because there are mutations in the spike protein that allows it to enter the cells a little bit better. But in terms of the resistance to treatment, resistance to vaccines, the severity of illness is pretty much the same. So if you actually put it all on a level playing field now with the Delta and the Delta Plus, eventually the Delta Plus will take over because it's more transmissible. But the pace at which it happens will not be like the switch from the Alpha to Delta. It will be at a slower pace. And for that reason, we can thus see why WHO is calling a variant of interest. They are interested in it, but they are not very worried about it at the moment.
Right. So building on what you just said, what conditions does a variant have to have in order for WHO to, I guess, reclassify it from a variant of interest to a variant of concern?
We need to have a certain number of people that are infected with it, and ideally over a few countries and many different areas. We also like to see that it is a lot more transmissible than just the ordinary strains which we have been having or experienced. We like to see resistance to the existing treatment, the resistance to the existing vaccines, or the immunity which the previously infected individuals have. When you have this, a sudden shift, a sudden change, then it becomes a variant of concern. If there's not much change in transmissibility, there's no change in resistance to treatment or resistance to vaccines, then it becomes any other ordinary strain, and WHO wouldn't bother with it, and it wouldn't even be called a variant of interest or concern. So in other words, whatever that's going to change status quo in the world would make it a variant of concern.
Okay, well, Dr. Leong, let's change topics. MOH is closely monitoring the unusual surge on Wednesday when Singapore's daily cases went over 5,000. What are the reasons for this increase, you think?
It is really puzzling, isn't it? From 3,000 odd numbers to 5,000 odd numbers. And last night we saw the numbers fall back to 3,000 again. There are a few possibilities. Number one, could it be a false positive, a laboratory issue, and hence many cases were wrongly labeled as a positive case? But I don't think so. If that were to happen, we should be able to clear that within 24 hours. The second possibility is that there are certain pockets of infection which the people or the government was not aware of. So you can imagine there's a group of 100 people, we've extended up to 1,000, one of which finally had a test done for PCR was found to be positive, and all the rest of the friends and contacts started testing more and more and more, and you find out that there were actually many people that are undiscovered. I call these pockets of infection that are widespread in Singapore. To me, that's the more likely reason. The third possibility is, of course, there's a lag in reporting between what was found until what was reported and eventually tabulated into the numbers, and just be one of those days where the numbers blew up. Not that it was blowing up suddenly, but rather it's been building up gradually, but it all popped on Wednesday.
Well, Dr. Leong, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. That was Dr. Leong Hoe Nam, an infectious diseases physician from the Rophi Clinic at Mount Elizabeth Novena. Well, more parts of Changi Airport could be open to allow faster immigration clearance following complaints about long waiting times. Clearing immigration, as you know, at Changi is usually very quick, but the delay is coming as more passengers are arriving under Singapore's many vaccinated travel lanes. Here's Minister for Home Affairs and Law, K. Shanmugam, addressing the complaints.
Last week, we had 5 flights were bunched up, and the processes were a little bit different. It took more than an hour, I think 90 minutes or so. And we looked at how that can be dealt with, separated out, so we're prepared for bunching up. But of course, those who don't submit online the forms and their vaccination status will have a different experience. This morning, 4 VTL flights arrived: Copenhagen, Milan, London, Los Angeles. We observed the passengers arriving, in particular from London. I think there will be a difference in experience between those who submitted their declarations online. It's very smooth for them. If they use the automated lanes, which were opened this morning, took about 20-30 seconds to clear. And if they're using the manual lanes, about 8 to 10 minutes, assuming there's no bunching up of the flights.
Well, at least 4 universities here are making COVID-19 testing easier for their students, with plans to install vending machines on campus that dispense antigen rapid test kits. Different ways this will be done. For instance, when operational next week, the 2 machines at the Singapore University of Technology and Design will dispense 8 free kits to students and staff. Over at the National University of Singapore, though, to collect the free kits, students must submit their ART results weekly through a mobile app, which will generate a QR code, which students can then scan the vending machine's reader. Vaccinated students can collect the kits after submitting 2 results, while those unvaccinated must submit 4. Announcing its latest guidelines today, the National Wages Council says employers that have recovered or are recovering from the pandemic should prioritize 2 areas: restoring their workers' wage cuts and rolling back wage-related cost-saving measures like temporary layoffs and no-pay leave. Meanwhile, businesses still struggling should consider non-wage cost-saving measures as far as possible and try to pay workers their annual wage supplement.
The focus last year was on helping employers to implement necessary wage cuts and appropriate cost-saving measures in order to save jobs. With the economy and the labour market gradually recovering, the tripartite partners agree that it is timely to ease the exceptional wage policies that were put in place earlier. At the same time, the guidelines take into account the fact that there are still sectors and employers that continue to be adversely impacted by COVID-19. COVID-19 has also underscored the importance of greater resilience in our wage system. Implementing the concepts of the flexible wage system last year was a crucial part of our tripartite response. So going forward, we have to make the flexible wage system more pervasive in the labour market so that we have sufficient agility to weather future downturns.
The council also saying that employers should raise gross wages of lower wage workers by 4.5 to 7.5% or $70 to $90, whichever is higher. This to ensure that their pay grows faster than those at the median wage level. At the same time, the council's recommendations for these lower wage workers will reference gross monthly wages as opposed to basic monthly wages to give employees more certainty of their expected monthly salary for a set of standard working hours.
From the worker's perspective, actually what matters most is how much he or she take home, how much he or she actually earns per month. And this is the total package. It includes allowances, it can include some OT, it can also include other forms of payment from the employer. So from that perspective, we thought that if we use gross wages, it will allow us to then have a more standard yardstick to compare across different groups of lower wage workers in different sectors and use that as a way of ensuring that we uplift over time the wages of this group of Singaporean workers to catch up with the median income over time, gradually, step by step.
Still on manpower, according to advanced estimates, Singapore's labour market improved in the third quarter compared with Q2. One indication, retrenchments fell with 2,000 layoffs in Q3. Total employment decline also slowed thanks to resident employment growing faster. Unemployment rates dropped as well, although they remain elevated compared with pre-pandemic levels.
This shows that our labour market stayed and remain resilient in spite of the return to phase 2 heightened alert restrictions in July. There continue to be employment opportunities for our residents, especially in the outward-oriented sectors such as professional services and financial services. The expansion on the vaccinated travel lane and travel-related activities may also give an uplift to industries such as air transport services. And that said, we expect recovery across the sectors to be uneven still, especially as Singapore continues in its stabilization phase. We will be releasing more details, such as resident and non-resident employment. We'll be providing more sectoral breakdowns, the number of job vacancies, labor turnover and re-entry rates amongst retrenched residents in mid-December through the labour market report, third quarter 2021, and this will give us a fuller picture of the labour market situation.
In other news, the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth is looking into amending rules for displaying the national flag to possibly include more occasions to do so, not just between July and September. It's also seeking to review and simplify guidelines for the artistic and commercial use of national symbols, so local artists and designers can use them without undue fear. These amendments will be finalized next year. In a surprise move this morning, businessman Ong Beng Seng and two Temasek-linked entities making a rival offer for Singapore Press Holdings. At $2.10, it's just above what's already on the table from Keppel Corp, which is also a Temasek-linked entity. And it comes almost 3 months after Keppel offered to buy out SPH's property assets. The Ministry of Defence says Harry Birtwistle's application to renounce his Singapore citizenship has been rejected because renunciation shouldn't be used as a means to evade national service duties. The rejection means the 17-year-old footballer is abroad without a valid exit permit. Just days ago, he became the first Singapore-born professional footballer in the English Premier League. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is betting big on the metaverse and changing the company's name to Meta. His vision? The future of the internet is going to be virtual, and it will be the new way people interact with computers and each other.
We believe the metaverse will be the successor to the mobile internet. We'll be able to feel present, like we're right there with people, no matter how far apart we actually are. We'll be able to express ourselves in new, joyful, completely immersive ways. And that's going to unlock a lot of amazing new experiences.
As you would expect, Facebook's announcement sparking jokes on social media. One of the best, fast food chain Wendy's announcing it's changing its name to Meat. And here's one from Twitter, a one-liner, big news, LOL, JK, still Twitter. Well, those are our top stories for today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos, and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. Have a great weekend, and I guess see you in the metaverse.